I am sure that you have had to navigate a transition in life and probably several transitions, whether it's an anticipated transition like a move or maybe summer break, or unexpected like illness or a death in the family. What can we do though to make these transitions a little bit more manageable? I'm going to give you some tips around that today. My name is Angie. Welcome to my channel, Quiet Confident Woman. My passion is building confidence in women, especially introverted women. I love supporting you in finding an area of your life that just feels chaotic and applying a strategy or system in place to bring it to a sense of calm. When we are less stressed in our life, we definitely show up more confidently. If you love what you hear, make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to receive tips once a week via email, make sure to go ahead and subscribe to that email in the notes below. The question is not, are we going to ever go through a transition? The question more will be like, when is our next transition? The first thing I want you to keep in mind is acknowledging that it is going to be a time of transition. It is not going to look the same as what life looked like 2 weeks ago. Will it in the future again? Perhaps, depending on what kind of transition that you're going through. But know that if you try to keep everything the same, it's like pushing a square peg through a round hole. It is not going to work. And if we don't wrap our brain around this needs to look a little bit different than what it did, it very much will be a lot more stressful. So the first thing is to acknowledge that it is a time of transition and it is okay to have some change. The second thing would be for expected events like summer break. Think ahead. What are some things that are going to be changing and how can you adjust to that change? Whether it's a mental adjustment or a schedule adjustment or a meal adjustment, whatever that happens to be, what can you do to navigate that change maybe a little bit earlier so that when that transition happens, you are already prepared? Maybe it's during summer break, you know that you're going to be working less hours and financially you need to be set for that. Or maybe it's the kids will be in a camp a certain time of the summer for a whole week and you are able to maybe work a little bit more during that week and less during other parts of the summer. Just anticipate those things that you know are going to change in order to make that transition a little bit easier. The third thing would be to keep what you can from systems that you had previously and move them into this transition season. Now, this may not work for all systems that you have, or you might just have to adjust them a little bit versus keep them exactly the same, or you might have to throw them right out the window and they're not going to work at all. But whatever you can keep or adjust a little bit, do that. It's going to make life feel a lot smoother. For example, if during the school year you decided, okay, morning routines are chaotic, it is something that we need to have a system for, and you designed a system to make mornings less stressful. You laid out clothes the night before, maybe you planned meals for the whole week ahead of time, so breakfast really just needed to be warmed up and put on the table. Maybe you had a certain time that everyone needed to be ready by, and you were in the car by that time. Whatever it is from a system you created, pull what you can into this new system. Maybe breakfast can still be made ahead of time, but instead of sitting around the table as a family, whenever the kids happen to get up that day, they are able to grab something from the fridge, maybe pop it in the microwave for a couple minutes and sit down and eat on their own so you can continue to work. Whatever that looks like, keep what you can from those previous systems that you have put so much work into and allow that to carry you through this transition time as much as you can. Another thing would be to know your priorities. This is especially important when you're going through a transition that is completely unexpected. Know the things that you want to keep dear and maintain, and know the things that maybe you want to maintain, but you need to do or other people can do, and you can delegate those things out. So, our family had gone through a transition period that was completely unexpected almost a year ago. My husband was in a severe dirt bike accident. He was in the ICU for a couple of days and in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And during that time frame, I had to know what I had as a priority. And a couple of those things was the rest of my family was taken care of, as well, of course, as my husband. But we had a son to think about and a dog that needed to be fed. So we wanted to make sure that that was taken care of. The other thing that I really put as top priority was our health. I wanted to make sure that all of these trips to and from the hospital that we stayed healthy, so we didn't compromise my husband's health, and that we got enough sleep in order to do that, that we ate healthy, that we were taking our vitamins and maybe even increasing our immune support. So those were some things that I really wanted to make sure that we kept in top priority. And one of the things that really supported us during that was we had a meal plan. And this was something that it needed to be tweaked a little bit, but because I had this in place for a couple of years ahead of time, I was able to go ahead and know what we were having for dinner, know that it didn't take me too long to make it, and that we had all of the food we needed at home. So it was honestly quite a lot easier for us to go home and make a meal, feed the dog, just kind of have a little bit of downtime, and then head back to the hospital after we ate, and then be back home to go to bed. And so while it was a time definitely of transition, it was also some things that we were able to keep in our life that allow the transition to feel still like us. Like, it supported us, it kept us sane, and it was something that allowed us to make the transition not so challenging. The last thing is flexibility and adaptability. I absolutely love flexibility, and I always make sure that I have that within my day, that I can move things around if I need to. Of course, there's always things that are set in stone, certain appointments and things like that, but I love to be able to have a certain extent of flexibility. Now, that is very different than spontaneity, and I do have spontaneous friends, my husband is one of them, that are like, oh my gosh, I can't put a system in place because I want to be spontaneous. I want to like go as the moment takes me. And quite honestly, you will be able to have more flexibility and spontaneity with a system in place. And a prime example of that is a meal plan. If we wouldn't have had a meal plan in place when my husband was injured, we would have had to think of what we were going to have for dinner. We would have had to run to the store, most likely, because we wouldn't have had it in our home. We would have needed to maybe eat out more, which wasn't going to serve us health-wise. And we may have gotten sick, which then allowed us not to go to the hospital or whatnot. So having that system in place allowed us to be really flexible and even have spontaneity. And so, if there was a day that we were at the hospital a little bit longer, or I was just more exhausted and I didn't want to take the time to cook as long as that recipe required for that day, I just chose a different recipe for the week, and I made that meal on a different day because I knew we had all the ingredients that we needed in our home. So having a plan, having a system in place, strategizing those things will allow you much more flexibility. And then adaptability. Knowing what you have tried in the past and keeping the things that worked and throwing out the things that didn't. So over summer break this year, if you are playing and trying different things and you're like, ooh, this worked really good, this didn't work so good, make notes of that. So next year during this season of transition again, you will be able to look back at those notes and be like, oh, that worked really good. And pretty soon it will just be seamless and flawless. And you will find that you have more time that you have freed freed up and your life will be less stressful. All right, my friend, I know that you have the strength to navigate any transition that comes your way, whether it's expected or unexpected. And know that these times may be challenging. There's some things that you can do to make them a little bit easier. And they are areas of growth, areas that we can learn and we can build from just from these experiences. I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.